Right, great. Welcome to our July metrics meeting. We're going to kick off with our typical welcomes to new hires that we have on staff. So we'll start out with Elliot in engineering, who lives in Boston. We have Jen, who is our new recruiting coordinator. Where is Jen? Back there. We have Simriti, who is joining us as part of the product and strategy team. Yay. Kai, who many of us know, is working on grants. He's in Washington. We have Janet. Where is Janet? Back. And then we also have Papal joining us in engineering, and he's with our ops data, Dallas data center. So, okay. And I'm going to turn this right over to Lila to kick it off.
That was fast. You go back to the front.
Whoops.
I think you're on the last slide.
Oh, no.
Start from the beginning. Okay, excellent. Good morning, everybody. Really good to see you. We should probably, instead of me and Sue's pictures, we should probably put the pictures of the people who are joining on there so that everybody gets to see them, even if they're in the back or remote. Yeah. They can send them to us.
All right.
So since I've given you my promise to keep you updated on where I am and we are an executive team as we move forward through my onboarding process. So I will talk to you today about the top 2 things that we want to be doing in the next little while. As all of you know, we're coming to a close on our annual plan, and I think it's a very timely moment to talk about those 2 things. So just really quickly in review, in the last episode of this, I'll go through this very quickly. We talked about that we will here work for the users, and those users are here to create and share knowledge. And these numbers aren't exactly up to date, but close enough. That's many of them. And we saw a really quick slides that Lila felt really sad about. And Lila asked help of her senior team to talk through about what we do well and what we want to improve and what we want to be doing next year, because this is the team that actually built the plan for the next year. So some of you know that we went out for a couple of days, and we've talked quite a bit about different things, and a lot of times when that happens, the rest of the employees wonder, oh my God, what are they going to come back with? So I sent you a short email about what we came back with, but mainly we reviewed the very, very long list of all the things that we wanted to do. And this list, as most of you know, each one of our teams builds up. And there are a lot of important things on it. But one thing that emerged is that as a team, as a combination of many, many parts, we needed to have some overarching themes. And the 2 things that we felt we needed to resolve in a fairly quick order, both for ourselves and with conjunction and with the support and help of the community, or more even so, more accurately even supporting each other, were the strategy, because it's a way for us to focus and to be able to make decisions. This is basically tells us how we choose where we're going. Oh my gosh, my English is not so good in this sentence. I'm sorry about that. And number 2, how do we solidify our operations? And what that means is, how do we actually do what we do in the most effective way possible? And both of those are very much interlocking strategies. It's not a thing that one person does or one team does. It's a thing that the whole organization does, whole movement does. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about those 2 things, because all of you are used to the strategy that we put together in the last 5 years. And as we move forward, I wanted us to think a little bit more about what the strategy really needs to be for us as we move into the next phase. So a strategy is designed to answer some questions. And the most important question is, where are we going? It is not a lot of other things, even though it supports or encompasses a lot of other things. So specifically, it is not a set of goals. It is not a plan. It is not a vision for the world, even though it uses the vision for the world to answer those questions. It's not a belief system. Belief and value system comes from our values. It is not a set of decisions. So what the hell is that? And if this works for me, maybe it doesn't. Can you press button? I think it's dead, actually. Oh. Back. So it is a way for us to connect the vision for the world that we have with the reality with our everyday reality. It's kind of like a bunch of things that we bump into in order to find the right way. So it is how everyday decisions are made by every single person in an organization. It's not actually a destination in and of itself, because we have a vision for our destination. So in reality, this is just one of the charts for strategy development. In reality, it's a direction that gets combined from the vision that we have for the world and from the everyday decisions that you are making at every point during the day. And it's really important to understand that and realize that. So it's kind of a set of questions that tells us, should we be doing X or Y? And that's based actually on the strategy framework that's in place. It's a practice, just like any method is a practice that helps you choose the right thing at any given point in time. So this is something that we're going to start looking and planning for doing this in conjunction with our community and as a team. And there will be some of you who are participating directly, and some of the C-level staff, and of course a few of you from Eric's team who are deeply involved in this as well. So that's all nice and good. We need to develop that, but what is the how of all of this? How do we actually get there? And this is where the number 2 bullet point comes in, because that's really important, because that's actually a path of getting there. And this is where I want to talk to you about how do we actually do the right thing every day, not just decide on what it is. So we all know our goals are we need to engage more users, activate more editors, and with the goal of creating more content. Okay. So this means creating objectives with actual everyday actions. So let's think about it a little bit deeper. This means that everybody from the ED to individual contributor needs to be in sync in terms of what we do, in terms of our focus and in terms of our actual actions. So I wanted to show you one of the frameworks, and thank you, Gail, for actually putting this together. So this is an adoption from OTR framework, and this shows you how you go from the very broad objective at the very top to the individual deliverables of each individual person. So when you look at the very high level, the Fellowship of the Ring has a very specific objectives they need to defeat Sauron. And then the particular tasks that they need to do are destroy the ring and defeat the armies of Mordor. So that's kind of, think of it as the C-level objective task. Now let's take a look what it might look like for different constituents here. So the hobbits, they have a separate set of things that they need to do, different set of results that they need to achieve in terms of, in order for them to make sure, in order for us to make sure that we defeat Mordor and destroy the ring. Warriors, however, have a whole other set of things. They're very different, but they're very, very specific. So hobbits need to travel about 1,500 miles to the mountain in under 6 months. Find the guide to do that. Warriors need to gather a bunch of allies and win a bunch of battles. And then at every individual level, it keeps going more detailed. And again, they have very specific goals as well. All of those at the same time support the overarching goal. So, okay, great. It's very helpful. You know, clarity of goals, measure progress, own results, focus on the effort. Lila, this is great. But in practice, you know, really, are we going to do any of this? Come on.
Garfield would object to that, by the way. So
please, yeah, please don't do that. Okay, so some of you are starting to see that, especially if those of you in product and engineering group, you're starting to see this kind of push for specific results that you are trying to achieve in the next quarter, right? And a lot of you are actually thinking about what are the right metrics, what are the right objectives to put into place in order to support that overarching goal. And we're just in the early stages of doing this. This is kind of a sample for what we started to do with executive staff, and you can see it on the wiki what Eric is doing. But this eventually will percolate in lesser specificity to all of you at each of your levels. And as you can see here, the objectives and their impact on the goals are very specific. And this is how we're moving forward in terms of how we're going to do this. So another important thing that I wanted to talk to you about is as we move forward, it's really hard to gain resolution on a 12-month forward horizon. So one of the things that I've been guiding most of the teams to, and I wanted to talk to you here about a little bit, is that it's really important that we set and meet achievable goals at the resolution where we can really understand them. We have predictability, which is about 3 months forward. I think it's realistic. The 6 months, they become a little bit more abstract. And then in the 12 months, they're at that point, the abstraction level is pretty high up. So what we want is goals for the year that are fairly abstract, a little bit more detailed for 6 months, and very precise for 3 months. So at the end of those 3 months, we can really stand up and say, yes, we've done it, and hold ourselves accountable for what we've promised we'll do. So with that, I just want to come back to the original. Remember, we're here for our users. Remember, keep that in mind as you set your own goals and objectives. We're at the end of our goals and exercise. Remember that our goal here is to make their experience, but to do it as one team, not as a collection of separate parts. And in the end, to make them happy. And that's it for me for today. If you have questions, I don't know, do you have a little bit of time? Eric gives me 3 minutes. Questions? Have I confused you yet with all of the things that I've been asking? Okay. Okay.
Okay.
I think we're okay.
All
I can
right.
pick it up at the end.
Great. Then we'll open it up again and move on to the top line metrics.
So I'm going to focus in mostly on briefly on the active editor trends and some of the stuff that's been happening on mobile. So on the active editor side of things, this is the one key metric, the number of people who make more than 5 edits in a given month. We're seeing a small uptick in May, which is always nice to see, but there's a seasonality in this pattern. The one thing that is clearly not seasonal is what we're seeing here in the red line, which is the number of active contributors to Wikimedia Commons. And that is mostly something we can attribute to Wiki Loves Earth, the photo competition that we talked briefly about last month, similar to Wiki Loves Monuments, but with a different objective, photographs of nature around the world, wildlife reserves, etc., nature reserves. And the spike isn't quite as high as what we've seen with WLM, but there's still a pretty significant number of contributors that came to Wikimedia Commons to upload photos through that contest. In addition to that, we are really drilling into these metrics now to better segment mobile and desktop contributions, and we're seeing some very promising trends in the mobile contributions over the last few months. It looks like mobile contributions are tracking traffic growth, whereas desktop contributions historically have not tracked to traffic growth. We'll dig into that a bit more in the next few weeks, and then we'll show you a deep dive into that data. But one bit of data that I already wanted to give you relates to something that the mobile team did last month. So as you can see, when you visit the mobile site in your desktop browser now, it doesn't look like a mobile site anymore. It actually looks just like a website. You can navigate it, you can edit Wikipedia in the mobile mode, you can make contributions, and you can use it as a reader. And it really is optimized, first and foremost, for that sort of initial reader experience, and then draws you into becoming a contributor if you want to. So increasingly, we think that's a pretty great experience for our readers. And especially if you're on a device like a tablet, it's an experience that's optimized for that form factor. It's really optimized for touch. It's optimized for the mobile experience. And so previously, up till June 18th of this year, users on an iPad or an Android tablet would be getting the desktop site, which is not really at all optimized for a tablet. The links are very small, the targets are not easy to hit with your finger, and there's a lot of clutter and a lot of Chrome that you actually don't need as a reader. And so on June 18, we changed the default experience for readers on tablets to this now more responsive mobile experience that scales well to different types of tablets, different devices. And what we're seeing so far is that users like it quite a bit. So this is actually the usage data, that shows us where users on tablets are going. And so what happened prior to June 18 is that users on tablets were going to the desktop with the green light, but some of them were actually already going to the mobile site without being redirected there. They were choosing to use the mobile site on their tablet. Now what's happening now that we've made the switch is that very, very, very few users choose to go to the desktop site, even though they still have that option. Like, there's a very prominent link to the desktop site in the footer of the tablet experience. So if you really hate it, you can easily go back, and if this change had been unsuccessful, we would probably have seen this line spike up very quickly with users returning to the desktop experience. But even over time, we're not seeing any kind of movement of users back to the desktop experience. Rather, the users are really liking this new experience optimized for readers. So this is a very positive change, we think, for readers, and it's also going to be a positive change for bringing in users more quickly as editors, because the calls to action are a lot more visible when you get rid of a lot of the clutter around it. So I just want to give a quick hand to the mobile web team for doing this work. And we're going to have more mobile updates. In fact, the first update that we're going to have substantively is going to be from Mr. Dan Gary, who is the product manager for mobile apps. And as you know, we launched the new Android app last month. And he's going to tell us a little bit about what we've learned so far. Why does it always start at the end?
Hi, so I'm Dan. I'm the Associate Product Manager for Mobile Apps. I'm here to talk to you about the Android app launch. So in case you didn't get it from the title, we launched an Android app. So, thank you. Any of you that have an Android device right now, go to the App Store, type in Wikipedia, download it, it's cool. So, in particular, these are the features. It's a lot faster than the old app. We've completely rewritten it from the ground up in native code, so it's really swish. You can now edit, importantly logged in or logged out, so you can just from the start just edit right away. You can also save pages for offline reading, so if you know that you're on the train a lot and don't have internet access like me, then you want to read an article, save it. You can also look at the pages you've been browsing, so if you get lost pressing loads of wiki links and then think, what was I actually doing 15 minutes ago? I don't remember. You can find out. So also, language support. This is really cool. So in the settings menu, you can change your language, and then you're on a different language Wikipedia. So it takes a couple of taps, and you can read in a different language. And also, Wikipedia Zero, you might have heard of this. So we've got zero rated access with the participating networks around the world. So that's really cool. Okay. So it looks like this. If you want to read about icebergs, then you can. So when you're on an article, lovely images, edit pencil. Not that I'm trying to subliminally influence you or anything. You can also search. There's loads of other features, but I just wanted to show the top level. So, okay. So how many people? Well, in the first 5 days of the launch, we've now got 4.8 million devices that have this on. So, and we know that 97.5% of those are people that updated from the old app that was in the App Store. Some of that's automatic. You can have automatic updates on with Google Play. But some of it's manual. And in particular, 125,000 are people actually downloading the new app. So it's really cool that we can figure out who's updating and who's downloading it. So previously, the graphs were flat. Well, I'll just show you the graphs, shall I? So
let me change the screen share real quick.
Just going to change so you can actually see the graphs. Those of you that are remote. There you go. So this is the launch of the app, and this is the growth as a result. This is flat for a long time, right? But what's interesting is that this isn't no one downloading the app. This is actually as many people installing it as are uninstalling it every day. So what's happened here is that this uptake is actually a result of a massive increase in the number of people installing it, and actually a slight increase in the number of people uninstalling it, which is interesting. But they're not in equilibrium with each other anymore. They're actually, the downloads are taking off. So can we scroll down and choose country? Sorry, scroll up now. See the country button? Yeah, so we can figure out where people are using it as well. So 20% of the people that are using it are in the US, 15% in Germany, which is much higher than these percentages were here when I last looked. So I'll have to try and recall them from memory. So on average, 4% of users of apps in our category are German. Ours is 15. And then UK, France, Italy, India. So that's just the country. If we look at the language, we can actually figure out what language setting people have their tablet in. And these are much the same, but then the other bits are different. In particular, I learned the existence of a new language, which is ESUS, Spanish United States. I didn't know that existed as a proper language in the Android app. So yeah, can we go back to the slides? So, next slide. How good is the app? That's what we want to know. So our team's goals are based around increasing new and repeat contributions, so active editors, basically. But how many people are actually editing right now? Are they creating accounts? And, in particular, what's stopping them from editing more? What are the pain points? What can we do better? So we have some metrics on this. And I'm going to start with a somewhat underwhelming figure of we don't know how many people are reading articles right now. We have the upper bound for that, which is the number of devices that have the app on, but we're going to figure that out. But we do know 100,000 impressions were made on the edit pencil, so there were 100,000 attempts to edit an article. And we don't know what the conversion rate is here, but based on the number of people that have the app installed, the upper bound is 2%. So that means that 98% of people are just using the app to read and don't press this pencil. Like, that's interesting. So of the people that made it here and started and then maybe they started typing, maybe they didn't, but of the people that made it to the edit page, 10% of them actually made a change and pressed next. So that's kind of a surprising, shocking, 10%, we can do a lot better than that. So then once they've made their change, they have these edit summary boxes. You can either type one in or you can choose from these quick ones and see a preview. You can see I was vandalizing when I was doing this because Infobox Fruit is probably not a good description for an album by the Beatles, but whatever. And then 5.5 thousand actually made it to the actually having saved. So that's a 55% of the people that made it here actually managed to move on. So what that means is that our start to finish edit success rate is 5.5%. I think we can do a lot better than that. We have some of these numbers for desktop, but we need to be very careful. Just because we have a number for desktop doesn't mean it actually makes sense to try and compare the two. So, this could be tricky, or it actually could be complete nonsense if we don't do it right. We are going to do it right. So, what I mean here, for example, is if you go back to the last slide, we have this figure, so we can kind of figure out how many people we're losing at the preview step, which is 45%. But that as a concept doesn't really exist on desktop. So to try and compare that wouldn't make much sense. But comparing start to finish with desktop does make sense. So yeah, we're going to try and make some better comparisons here. So in the first 5 days that the app was live, there were 36,000 accounts registered on the English Wikipedia. That's on any platform. So we know that 56% of those accounts were on desktop, 22% were on web, and 22% were on the Android app. So that's kind of astounding. And for those of you that are observant, you'll notice that these three numbers actually add up to 36,212. Apparently one person managed to register on both desktop and web at the same time. But yeah, so that's kind of astounding. Just the Android app. We're not even on iOS. So yeah, and this includes 18 dead hours. In other words, this is the first 5 days. It includes the 25th, which was the launch date, but the app didn't go live until 1800 UTC. So the numbers may be a bit higher. So what's interesting is we give people zero incentive to sign up. Absolutely nothing. We don't tell them why they should, and they did anyway, right? So a lot of this is due to the app being new. We're aware of that. But if you go to the next slide, that's it. In the side menu, there's a login button. That's all we do to tell people to log in and register accounts, and they do it anyway. So on logging in, 73,000 people tried to log in. 20,000 succeeded. 20,000 had an error. Sorry, no, there were 73,000 attempts to log in, not people. So 26% succeeded, 27% didn't, and 45% had an error. You'll also notice that these numbers don't add up to that either. That's because some people tapped it and then closed the app. But yeah, we need to treat those numbers with skepticism, because if you enter your password in 5 times incorrectly and then log in, you count 5 times in here and 1 in here. So this isn't in any sense a number of people or represent the success of the workflow. But it's interesting numbers anyway. So what are we doing soon? A night mode for reading comfortably at night. That's actually based on user feedback. Loads of people asked us for that. We didn't expect it at all. We were scrambling to get saved pages in because it was in the old app. And then when we launched it, no one mentioned it, and people were like, I'd like to read at night, so we're going to do it. Reference usability, because references aren't really so good on the app right now. It scrolls you down and you can't get back easily. Adjust the font size so that it's more accessible for people. Also onboarding. We're actually going to tell people why they should sign up, because they're doing it anyway. So, and iOS, just as because people use iPhones and stuff. So in a few weeks, we'll have an iOS app out there. Thank you. That's high-pitched. Questions? Do I have time for questions? Yeah?
How does the recent saved pages thing work? Are we storing that data? Is that saved on the device?
Yes.
That kind of thing?
Yes. So you go to, if you're looking at a a new slide appeared. If you go to a page and you tap the overflow menu at the top right, there's a save page button, and it stores all of the data on the device. We do it quite fast. It's very, very nice. Yeah. And here's the Android apps team. UV, Dimitri, and Bernd are the engineers. Bibber and Moise are the designers, and I'm me, the product manager. So.
Other questions for the apps folks?
There's one question online. Had an error just include password failures?
Yes.
Okay.
So, well, not just. It includes other things as well. But password failure is by far the most common.
Okay.
James.
Where does search enter the Android roadmap?
Where does search enter the Android roadmap? Well, I'm guessing what that means is by full text search, because we do already have search in there. But that's a prefix search. So if you type Barak, for example, it will only return articles that begin with that word, rather than, like, for example, list of would never be included if you typed, unless you actually typed list. We're not sure. We'll see, is the answer to that question. Okay, thank you.
Move on
Thank
to
you,
platform.
Dan. And I think you get to stay up here.
And now we're moving on to me with my second presentation. Hello, I'm Dan. So I'm going to talk to you about the SEL finalization. Sorry, Eric. So I'm going to set the scene here, because SEL finalization is a term that's thrown around a lot. Not everyone knows what it means. So many years ago, we introduced this global login system. So originally, Wikimedia wikis, we had a separate username and password for every wiki. And we introduced global login. So isn't it fantastic that we have this global login so that everyone can use the same login across all Wikimedia wikis? No, is the answer. Because there are actually 4.1 million accounts that don't have global accounts, and they actually clash with other people. So that means that there are people that are named the same thing. There are different people named the same things on different wikis. So we're going to need, like, what do we do then? So their login only works on one wiki. So that sucks, pretty much. Well, isn't it great, at least, that everyone that has a global account can use the same login across all wikis? No, is the answer again. Because there are actually around 110,000 local accounts that clash with a global account. So that means that, say I'm called Dan on the English Wikipedia, and I have the global account, there's a Dan on another wiki that actually prevents me from using that name on that wiki. So that really sucks, right? So we just want to flip a switch and fix the problem. No. Like, this entire project is an edge case. And that bears saying. So what that means is we were kind of putting off the idea of actually globalizing things, and then as a solution to the technical debt of people not being able to log in across different wikis, we implemented central auth. Now our solution to the technical debt is actually the technical debt itself. So the edge cases within this get really, really complicated. So we need to be very careful. But this is why we're doing this, why we want to fix this problem. Because the absence of truly globalized accounts actually complicates the development of truly global features. So let's say, for example, I am a product manager for multimedia, and I like the idea of people being able to upload their photos to Commons when they're on the English Wikipedia, right? So can you assume that the person is called the same thing on Commons, and that we won't have to throw up a login dialog to them in the middle of them doing their edit? Right now, no, you can't. You have to assume that we'll need a login dialog in there. That ruins the experience. Or let's say we're making some sort of newfangled discussion system where we might want topics to be global, right? Well, what if the person on one wiki called Dan is someone else, and then I reply? Like, we've got two Dans. How do we handle that? So this is blocking a lot of things. So we're going to fix it. We'll make every account a global one. I wish it was as simple as that sounds, but that's what we're going to try and do. So the unification team, is Chris Stipe in platform engineering, Kunal in features engineering, me again, hello, Keegan, community liaison, and Rachel, the new director of community engagement, because we're going to be renaming 4.2 million people. That's quite a bit of community engagement. So we have some goals. So the 3-month mission basically is actually get the switch ready to flip so that we can make everyone's account global. We're not at that stage yet. So, but we're not going to be able to do it within 3 months. We're not actually going to be able to flip the switch because we need to reach out to these 4.2 million people, tell them what's happening, tell them what they can do, how they keep their name, so on. So our goal is to have a date for when we will do it by the end of the quarter, not actually have done it. So, and make it sure that we only have to do it once, because if we try and do this as a quick hack, we'll end up with, there are tools out there right now that perpetuate this problem, that cause more accounts to be not global. So we need to make sure we only need to do this once, so we're doing it right. And, as I said, speak to the 4.2 million people, tell them what's happening. Also speak to the Wikimedia community, because they want this to happen as much as we do at the foundations, so we need to make sure we reach out to everyone. Thank you.
Any questions?
Questions?
Lisa over here. The hyphen's got a mic behind you.
Thank you.
Oh, wait.
Is that working?
Sorry. You and then you.
Okay.
Right, quick question. So, of the 4 million accounts, how many haven't been used in the last year?
That's kind of difficult to say. Probably a lot of them, but you know, that like to an extent, the way that we decide who wins, like who actually gets to keep the name, tries to do that to an extent, tries to prioritize the people that are more active. But ultimately, that's a judgment call, and scripts aren't very good at making judgment calls. So the rules we're going to implement are going to be imperfect. Try and capture most of the cases. Try and get the most active people. But it's not going to be perfect. So there are going to be, the stewards will have the power to like try and to like circumvent the rules a bit. That's probably a bad way of putting it. But change it so that when the finalization actually happens, the person that the community thinks is more important gets to keep the name, so that it's not just all being decided by a script.
Once you globalize the usernames, how will you be able to track sort of the integrity of every edit associated with, you know, if someone has multiple usernames? Will you be able to somehow, like, will they be collective? Like,
so we do have global accounts already. In fact, I would wager a bet that pretty much everyone in this room actually has a globalized account and isn't going to be affected by the SUL finalization. So there, you know, we track people's user IDs, and that's in the database, and there's like global ways of doing that. It's still a bit complicated on the engineering like side, but to the user, they don't notice anything. They go to a new wiki, it logs them in automatically, and then they edit, and it you know, works, and it's nice.
the history won't.
The history, so
won't be lost.
the names that they used to have will change to the names that they have now as a result of this. So like the history and everything will be changed. So you know that this already happens. You can already rename people. In fact, the very fact that you can rename people is what caused some of this problem, because our renaming scripts and our renaming tools don't respect global accounts. So like when I rename A to B, I like detach the local account from the global one, and then it's 4.1 million and 1. So that's what I mean about like making sure that we give people the tools to make sure this doesn't happen again, as opposed to just like flipping the switch, because we could flip the switch and then that's it, but the problem would just happen again. So, James?
Lots of people saying yay. Some people asking if we could have a time machine to go back in time and stop Brian from making Central Auth. And the stewards want to help you.
I think that's wonderful to hear. So I think we'd all love a time machine for multiple different reasons. But we have to remember that Central Auth was actually great in a lot of ways, because it solved the problem of people not being able to work cross-wiki at all. It's important to remember that. But yeah, it's now technical debt that we need to fix, and I'm very glad to hear that the stewards want to work with us. We want to work with them. We just don't want to contact them too early before we know what we're gonna do. But Rachel and I have already been talking about this. Like, we know we need their help. We need their help. Like, it's not as simple as just wanting it. We can't do this on our own.
All right, thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Speaking about newfangled discussion systems, I'm going to get an update on Flow from Aspage and Demi Horn.
All getting set up. Can members of the Flow team stand up who are here?
Flow people.
Come on, stand up,
All the
everyone.
flow people. There are
Anyone
some
here?
flow people.
John Robson.
John, you count.
Also, we have a bunch of remote people. There's Matthias Mully in Belgium, who defeated America. Nick Wilson in Vancouver, Canada. Shayar Godbatpour in Montreal, Canada. And Andrew Garrett jet-setting around the world. So we have other people on the team. So in an effort to make this extra stressful, of course, the monthly metrics is as we're launching the feature. So the feature may or may not be going out as I speak. So yeah, we have a new version of Flow going out. And it's kind of like it's sort of like a cake. There's changes in the lower level and there's changes in the upper level. So moving first to the lower level, I'm going to let engineers read this, although there will be a quiz for people from finance to make sure they're understanding this. But essentially, a flow page, it comes from the server, and then while you're interacting with it, JavaScript updates it. And the way we used to be doing it wasn't ideal. Go ahead. And now what we're doing is the code that comes from the server is rendered with a template, and then when you interact with it, you add a reply or you resort it or something, JavaScript changes the page and it uses the same template. Now this is where everyone in the audience should be going insane and cheering and going, that is the most amazing thing ever. So thank you very much. So it was surprisingly, it was sort of extremely hard and also somewhat straightforward because we use, probably the most entertaining part of it is the code names for it. We're using a library called Handlebars and another library called Light and Candy. And I'm not even sure why Light and Candy is called that. So yeah, it's a better way to do these things, and you know, it's the same code on both sides. But it's important to point out that there's also an RFC for templating, which Gabriel Vicke and Matt Walker are working on. And unfortunately, our timing didn't quite line up. So we're very supportive of what they're doing. What we're doing, I think, is interesting and useful, and obviously it's code that other people can use. But there's an RFC and a process to make it even better. Go ahead. So then moving to the upper part of it, as you may know, Flow ushered in a previous set of changes to our Agora style, where the buttons went from having a gradient to being kind of solid buttons. And that's now available in core, and you'll see it on the Create account and login forms and a few other forms. But there's a bunch of new things that Shayar Godbatpour worked on in Flow, and likewise we hope these will also make it to core. There's a patch for that. So you can see that we have these kind of styles for things. There are constructive buttons, progressive buttons, destructive buttons, transgressive buttons. But you can now, it's very easy to use those kind of in inline links, because you don't always want a big heavy button for one of these things. But you can see that this reply is styled like a button, but isn't. We're also using the wiki font, a new wiki font to render icons. So you can see here that this is a regressive button, but the icon for it changes color as well because it's not an image, it's actually a font. There are other button styles. You'll see when if and when you use Flow, you'll see some of the other styles we're using. This thing is actually a drop-down menu. We're using a really nifty kind of built-in automatic drop-down thing, and also we have a new tooltip style. And like I said, you know, we hope these will move to core and they'll be available for other things. So I guess go ahead. There's also a new feature where you can also choose how the board appears. Normally you see the most recently added topics at the top, but you can now change to see the most recent topics with activity. So if there's an old topic but there's been a new post on it, you can sort by that. And actually in conjunction with the ability to toggle all the topics and collapse them all, it's actually a nice way to kind of go to a board and quickly see what's been going on. You can either see recent topics or you can see recent activity. And it'll remember that when you go to other pages. And so I guess we wanted to have Shayar demonstrate this, but so he's available. Maybe we can cut to him.
We do have a Shayar.
Do we have a Shayar?
Right here.
Yep, there it is.
Oh.
Hey Shayar, how's it going?
So. I guess my internet connection is not ideal, but maybe it'll last long enough that I can actually talk before I turn into a robot. Yeah, so I guess I probably won't be able to demonstrate it because the bandwidth is too low here. So I'll try anyways.
Yeah, it's
But
on.
I feel like it might be better if you demonstrate it locally.
Okay, well, what I think we'd rather do is just have people try it. You know, it's good, it's better, it's working well. It's on Beta Labs, and depending on how the deployment train is going, it's actually going out on MediaWiki.org. So yeah, I think it's best to see it by trying it. But yeah, there's a lot of neat UI ideas in there that we're excited to see.
Do you want me to pull up any of the labs?
No, I think it's okay.
Okay.
Trust us.
Can we just go back? There's one more slide.
And one more. Now this is. Yeah.
Slides?
Go back to the
Yes.
presentations.
Great. All right. The last thing to talk about is some of the stuff that we have planned for the next few months. The big goal, now that we have a lot of the architecture done, the big feature goal for us is going to be having people never miss a message. The point of Flow as a discussion system is it's supposed to be more accessible for new users. For active editors, it should be more efficient because it helps you to only pay attention to the conversations that you care about, filter out the ones that you don't, and really the core that we want to achieve is to create meaningful discussions, meaningful interactions and conversations that help to support collaboration. Meaningful for us basically means somebody asks a question, somebody else comes and answers that question, and the person who asks the question can see the answer without knowing how watch lists work or without knowing how diff pages work. The way that we're going to be doing that is we're right now creating a way to subscribe just to an individual topic on a board rather than the whole board or the whole, well, you know, in old school wiki talk page is the whole talk page. So you'll just get notified for the conversations you actually care about. And then notifications are going to start showing up where you're seeing stuff based on just that topic name, and you'll see only one notification item for each topic. So if one person has responded to this thread, and a couple of people have responded to bananas, and like 4 people have responded to caterpillars, then you'll get that as sort of individual notification items. You can click on that and go straight to that conversation and see what's new without having to resort to a diff page or scrolling up and down a lot and sort of seeing, where did I see this last? What do I remember? So that's where we're going to be starting in Q1, and we're really excited about it. So there's a lot of really good stuff coming up. And that is it. That's all I got. Do we have questions?
When will you deploy into the real world?
Isn't MediaWiki.org the real world? No, I know it's not. Basically, we want to make sure this is sort of the big extra piece that we need to have before we really do a big push out any further than we are right now. So as soon as we're done with individual subscriptions, and then we have sort of a reasonable working version of notifications, then that's when we're going to start going out more live. Anybody else have a question? Yes, sir.
Are people going to be automatically subscribed to topics that they either start or respond to?
Oh, yes. Yeah, that will happen is when somebody creates a topic, you're automatically subscribed to it, and if you reply, you're also automatically subscribed. And go back to that page. And you'll be able to use, even if you're automatically subscribed to stuff, you'll be able to use the star icon at the top of each thread. So if you're automatically subscribed, you don't want to be, you can click on that, or you can click on it if you're not. You can subscribe to it without responding to it. Yeah. We are spending this quarter figuring that out. Oh, I'm sorry. So the question was, what's this going to look like on mobile? We're spending this quarter figuring that out. John from the mobile team is working with us for the next 3 months, so helping to refresh the UI and make sure that everything actually works. It's actually a really good use case for mobile because essentially the 2 things I think that people really like to do on their phone, that they do all the time on their phone, is to post a picture or to sort of just post a little bit of text, a little message. That's sort of the most common thing that people do. So we think it's really going to help to open up the accessibility of wiki conversations for folks who are using mobile.
To elaborate on that a bit.
So I miss messages all the time because I get messages on half a dozen different wikis, some of which I only go to every couple of weeks, right? Will this be cross-wiki? Like, will I receive a notification on English Wiki if I got something on Commons or vice versa?
Yes, yeah, the goal definitely is once we get a little further, we're going to, and once we have a single user, then definitely that's something that, yeah, that's something that we're planning for, yeah.
Cool.
Any more questions?
Sorry, I'm hiding behind the poll. For the sort of, especially for global stuff, do you have any sense of how to deal with scale? So I know I have at the moment probably 50,000 pages on my watch list, and that is obviously extreme because I've been around for a long time, but it's certainly not the only one. And there are lots of pages that I want to watch. One of my biggest worries about sort of a global flowboard with all of the stuff happening is that, especially with sort of unlimited streaming, whatever, that an enormous amount of stuff will quickly get hidden and buried just because I went to bed for a while.
Right. As far as scale goes, I mean, one thing that we're thinking about and concerned about is just the performance, and sort of scaling up on that. Something that we're just going to have to keep working on as we go. Hopefully, we're going to kind of see, once we get the notifications going, it won't just be in that menu, there'll also be a notifications page. So we're hoping to build in ways to keep you still informed and connected, even if you have, like 100 active conversations going on right now.
It's not on the roadmap, but we explored that fairly early on as like a velocity problem, and it is tied in with the actual concept of people asking for multiple watch lists. And the way to solve for that is to not add multiple watch lists, is to actually add a feature called a tagging feature, so that you could actually just filter your watch list or your subscription list based on specific tags, as opposed to actually creating multiple things. But that's probably still months and months out.
Yeah, there's still a lot left to do, but I think we're really excited about what we got coming up. Thank you very much.
And we have one final update, and it's going to be about fundraising, and I think the speaker is Shira. Shira here? And someone needs to add me to the actual document. Can you just share the slide deck that you made? Is it a Google presentation? Or is it a PDF? It's going to be tricky. Can you just import it into a Google presentation? What did you use to make it in the first place? PowerPoint? I got no jokes that I can tell that are going to get me fired in 5 minutes. We have a joke every month. So we're just going to leave the punchline. Those are great. We need to provide at least that.
So, if you have this much dead air on the BBC's Radio 4, the nuclear Polaris missiles are launched, because it's the sign that the British country has been nuked. And so there's a letter in the safe from the British Prime Minister saying, go ahead, kill everyone. If Radio 4 has dead air, clearly it's the end of the world. Thankfully, we're not quite in that position yet, I hope.
We're not.
Yet.
Do you have it in your clipboard already?
I had to change it at the last second. It was actually shared out.
I mean, is the link in your clipboard right now? Can you paste it in here?
I can look up engineering too.
Okay. All right. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Okay. Hello. I'm Shira. There's a dog. It's cute. What's that? This is what happens to our money. Don't mess with her. She looks dangerous. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of walk you through our statistics for the last fiscal year. And then afterwards, Katie and Lisa are going to be answering questions. So in general, we received Guide Stars top rating for fundraising efficiency, which is awesome. So yeah. Both online and major gifts hit their individual group goals, and we reached our overall department goal, which we're proud of. Major gifts held events for fundraising in New York and London, which went well. And we received a very significant legacy gift from Jim Pasha, and I believe it was the largest legacy gift that we've ever received. So that was very generous. Next slide. And then, so overall, we generated $50.5 million. Yay! So that was a success. A big deal for us was that we moved to a year-round continuous campaign model for testing and our campaigns. So that's relieved some of the pressure on December campaigns. We also launched the first experiments of mobile fundraising, which we're still doing, and it was our first year running multilingual email. We localized for, I believe, 80 different languages. And here's a chart that shows kind of what we pulled in over the months. Looks like April through October, we exceeded last year, which is awesome, but we really killed it in December. So that kind of shows you the breakdown for the last couple years. And then this one's self-explanatory, I believe. Where do our donations come from? Well, mostly North America, $31 million. And then you can see how it breaks out for the rest of the continents. We'd like to change those other numbers there on the right bit, because here's a chart. I think this number is really awesome. 2.5 million donations over the last year. It's a lot. And as you can see, most of them come from $10 or less donations, which is what we want.
Do we know the exact average right now? The average donation amount, is it in the mid-20s still, or?
I forget what it is right off the top of my head.
18?
18?
Wow.
$18?
That's pretty low nowadays. That's cool.
Some fun facts. Our most active online donation period was November 25th last year, 11 to 11:15 p.m. well, UTC. $30,750 out of 2,278 donations. So it was pretty amazing. And our biggest day, next slide, was December 3rd. $1.5 million on this day. Kind of amazing. 102,000 donations.
Yay. And then looking ahead for next year, we're going to continue to localize to reach even more donors worldwide to spread that pie chart out even more. We're going to expand our mobile fundraising reach, improve infrastructure and analysis, which is what I work on, fine-tune continuous campaign model as we bring in the things that we learned from last year and the year before, and we're going to be expanding the email fundraising. And if you have questions, anybody have questions? Do we have time?
Hey. That spike is exciting. What can you attribute that 15-minute spike to? Was it special banners, or something happening that day, or the mood of the world?
So that day, it was a little bit interesting. We were running some sort of pressure tests in the system to make sure that we were actually going to get anywhere near what we thought we were going to make in December. And so we were running a couple of like short hour-long or 2-hour-long 100% English tests. And so it was, I think, the first time a lot of people were really seeing an obvious campaign in about a year. And so that leading edge is really powerful.
Help translate things. Is Translators L still the best place for them to volunteer, or do they go elsewhere? Is this a question for people who aren't physically in the room?
Yes, it is.
Okay. In that case, it'll stay on IRC, and we'll pretend I never asked it. Okay, thank you. The translation extension on Meta for those listening.
So I was looking at the map, and I noticed that Latin America, I think, is what is it, like 180,000 compared to other areas, and I was kind of wondering, like, do you guys strategize around different regions when you guys do the campaigns, or is it? Yeah, just curious.
Yeah. So we want to have as big a global reach as we can. There's some countries that we can't fundraise in for legal reasons, and some we don't yet have kind of the best technical capability. We're not offering the right credit cards. So we started kind of prioritizing our work in the countries where we thought we'd make the most money, and we've kind of worked our way around the globe. So every year we, from a technical perspective, gain the ability to fundraise in more places. Fortunately, from a legal perspective, we tend to be losing the number of areas where we can fundraise. So it's a matter of both, and we, in terms of our work, try to build the technical capacity to successfully fundraise in as many places as we can.
Any final questions for fundraising before we wrap? Going. Okay. Thank you, everyone. That concludes July.
Which we can all smell is way over there. So please help yourselves.